4 of us in here without us.
We'd like to call to order the December 14th meeting of the Council's Strategic Planning Committee. Roll call, Madam Secretary. Let the record show that all members of this committee are present with the exception of Councilman Aaron Lawler. Item number 2 is going to be our invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight will be led in prayer by Mr. Scott Emil. And please remain standing when he's finished for the pledge.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you for tonight. Lord, I thank you for all of our public officials and all of the residents of Ascension. And Lord, I just ask that you would be with us tonight. You would guide our conversations. Lord, you'd give our councilmen wisdom and direction as they lead our parish. And Lord, I just ask that you would bless the rest of our night and all of our families, and you would continue to bless Ascension Parish. Lord, we love you and we honor you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, I see a lot of bright faces out there tonight. And we thank you for joining us. We realize, of course, the council does that this is the Christmas season. So obviously there's some things in your mind. That's good. That's what's healthy about a good democratic society. We will have a public comment period where we'll allow you to address your concerns. I have quite a few cards up here this evening. So if anyone that wants to speak on items 5, 6, or 7, we have 3 things on our agenda this evening. Please fill out a red or green card. For those that are new tonight, the red cards are indicative that you are against what we may be discussing and or proposing. A green card, conveniently Christmas colors, you are for it. Without further ado, then, we'll move to item number 4, which is approval of our November 9th, 2017 strategic planning minutes. I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
It's been moved by Councilman Joseph, second by Councilman Cagnolati, that we accept those minutes. Does anybody want to discuss anything? Hearing none, with no objection, those minutes are approved. Item number 5. It's a parish-wide solid waste management ordinance, and if you just beg your pardon, I see we have 2 late cards. Let me retrieve those. As is traditional, then, we will do public comment on this item first. Let me see if they're both item 5. Mr. Kluat, you didn't put a number. Do you wish to speak on 5, sir? Okay. And let me ask the same question to, is it John? Oh, he just wants to be against it. Okay.
Jeff, if he won't speak.
Okay, that's 7. So let's move that one back. This is a 5 here? Yeah. Okay, and okay, so Dustin, Mr. Kluat, since you have indicated you would like to speak on 5, and it's on the top, why don't you just come on forward, and you'll be given 3 minutes, sir. I don't have an official timekeeper tonight. Does anybody want to do that? Maybe Benny on your cell phone?
That's not it down there?
I don't see it.
Yeah, it's down there.
What you need? You need the timer, Georgie?
Thank you. No,
Yeah, that's it right there.
That's
It would be nice to let it go that way the public can see it as well.
Start it?
We actually need it up here to be able to control it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's my bad. As chairman, I should have secured that.
Tighten up.
Your time's running out.
That's it. That's all.
That's all the slack we got? You gonna do that, OJ? Mr. Cloud, we apologize. You may begin, sir.
Here to speak on the solid waste management ordinance. I'll be honest, I haven't had a chance to read it. I haven't had it in my hand. But from what I'm hearing, it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, that in some shape or form we may be going towards a franchised garbage pickup. I could not be any more against that. First of all, I'm not a fan of government getting into private business, but also with that being said, right now we have competition. Competition drives better prices, better service. I recently sold some apartments in Baton Rouge, and probably one of my biggest problems was that they were franchise garbage. Reason being is I dealt with Republic Services, which was awful, and they knew they were awful, and they basically told me they were the only game in town, so suck it up. The way we are now, if we don't like it, we have choice. During the 2015, 2016 campaign, I probably knocked on over 3,000 doors, and people told me a lot of crazy stuff that they had problems with. Nobody said anything about garbage. Seems like we may be trying to find a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. It's pretty much all I got to say about it. I'd like the parish to kind of stay in their lane and leave this up to private business. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker this evening on item 5 would be Mr. Brian Mawson.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for the time. I got a chance to look just for a couple minutes at the ordinance, and look, the time I spent sitting in the seat y'all are sitting in, I dealt with a lot of issues. There were some things in there that I know really need to be addressed. The litter ordinances and junk on properties, which I had a constituent who, just as a vendetta against a neighbor, started to pile their trash up along the fence line. We had no teeth in our ordinance to do anything with that. I know we definitely need to address that. But I too have some issues with the franchise part of it, with us getting into private business, taking over that. I really do feel that if you start to do that and you drive out some of these companies, and the one that's left, the cost to get back into it is so high, you're not going to bring those companies back in. So you end up driving up prices, you end up getting worse service. I wouldn't like to do that. When this came up a couple of years ago, this was probably, in my 4 years sitting on the council, the item that I got the most calls on, the most complaints on. Nobody wanted it. It's something that brought a lot of passion from a lot of the citizens, and especially in District 10. So it's something I think we really need to just stay away from. I would really like to see that part taken out of it. Thank y'all for your time.
Thank you, sir. Our third speaker this evening will be Mr. Boyd Daigle.
Okay, well, I'm here to speak about this solid waste management. And, we have, I'm a business owner here in the parish myself. And how can we, well, I'm against it to start off with. How can we run or dictate who picks our garbage up? That should be a personal opinion. That's our choice. We don't live in Russia. We live here. And I think the parish needs to stay away from that and give the community and the parish choice. Thank y'all for your time.
Thank you, sir. I'll give Mr. OJ a chance to catch up. Okay.
I'm on it, Doc. I'm on it.
I think all of us want to go
Quick
home.
learner.
Mr. Ricky Duplessis.
I want to thank you for your service. I know you don't have an easy job. I wouldn't want it. But what I wouldn't want more than anything is if this falls through and we get what y'all were looking for, I wouldn't want to make the 8,000 plus customers we have mad. I wouldn't want to be the guy sitting up there that made the decision. They said, yeah, well, back till 2018, we had a good deal going here, but somebody thought it'd be a good idea to get one company in here, and now that's all, just shot. Now we just stuck with what we got. I drive a truck for Dale. I've been with Dale about 6 years now, give or take. I see what's out there. I see what our competition does, and I know what we do. I suggest on a Monday, you go through any one of the big subdivisions, Keystone subdivision, go through there. Look at our cans placed back neatly on the curb. Look where those other cans are. Look at the mess them guys leave. Is that what you really want to give to your people of this parish? Is that what you want this parish to go down to? We may not be the biggest, but we do strive to be the best. And I just think y'all really need to think about what you're doing. Like I said, 8,000 people can't be wrong. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Mr. Duplessis. Got the clock going. See, you were bragging, OJ, of how quick you were.
Yeah, but I was writing notes down.
I understand. We can slow down just a bit.
Multitask, I ain't that good at it.
Yeah. Ms. Catherine Guppold?
Y'all might fire me in a little while.
That's why you're making the big bucks, OJ.
Good evening, gentlemen. The last meeting, Chairman Satterley requested Mr. Parrington to remove the definition for franchise service fee in this document, yet it remains in the new draft. Your legal advisor works for every member of the committee, so who on this committee requested that it remain? Councilman Satterley is opposed to a franchise fee on the citizens of Ascension Parish and an exclusive contract. This is a monopoly and removes competition. Councilman Joseph wants to provide this service for his constituents on the west side, but will they be able to pay? We are subsidizing their water now. Do you want us to subsidize their garbage pickup too? People despise politicians who scam them. Councilman Caglinotti's voters just rejected a half-cent sales tax in the city of Gonzales. They already have garbage pickup. He should recuse himself from this issue. There is no appetite for an elected official who wants more of our money. Supporting a franchise fee will give the voters parish-wide outside his district a good reason to oppose his reelection. Councilman Johnson is well aware of the mood of voters parish-wide on raising taxes and the rift in trust between public and our elected officials. Can you blame them? Should he support a garbage franchise fee, which is really another tax on the people, whatever you want to call it? He can kiss his chances of winning another reelection goodbye, let alone run for parish president. That leaves Councilman Lawler, who isn't here tonight, who's made it known that he wants this definition in the ordinance and he supports a franchise fee. I have 3 questions for Councilman Lawler. Do you have an exclusive or non-exclusive contract for garbage in mind? What are you considering for a monthly franchise fee to be paid to the parish? Will it be the 7% franchise fee and 3% administrative fee previously supported by the previous councilman from District 7? This 10% for 68,000 homes in the parish outside the cities of Gonzales, Donaldsonville, and Sorrento would bring in around $800,000 yearly. 3rd question, how will these dollars be used upon collection from the garbage vendor? This is really about getting control of more people's money. It's not about seeing that everybody's garbage gets taken care of. That's another scam on the public. And you wonder why citizens of our parish cannot trust you. Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Ms. Guppold. Our next speaker this evening is Dale Hidalgo.
Thank y'all, fellas. I'm been doing this for about 36 years now, and what I do for the people that I serve. You know, we try to provide the best service at the best price for our customers. We've been doing this, and you didn't start my clock, Oliver.
We're going to let you start all
Previous
over.
speaker, that's
Dale, if you
all.
don't mind starting from the beginning, sir.
I'll just
I
make sure
just gave you
y'all's
more
awake back
time,
there. you
Dale.
know?
I just gave you more time.
I just make sure y'all's awake. I see, you know, shoot. But we've been doing this, and this last month y'all told me I was going to take the franchise thing out of this deal, and I thought it was going to be taken out. I stand here to represent my customers that I don't know how I'd go tell my customers we want to get charged an extra price to do this, to pay the parish for their service. Doesn't make a bit of sense to me. And what I'm understanding, you want this for the West Bank is all you need it for. So why should we do it for the East Bank too, for the whole parish into here? Up there. So I think we ought to just we could reorganize this thing and take out these franchise fees and a lot of these other articles that y'all have in here about exclusive and non-exclusive contracts and all this other stuff. Maybe we could, we might go for it, but for right now, we're not, I'm not agreeing with this, what y'all have in the writing now. It's just not gonna work. For our customers and stuff like that, it's not right for the parish to do this. And like you say, it does lead down another road. Once you get all this in contracts, it may come to trying to bid out for one company to come in here and take over it, you know? How can you tell people you're gonna give them a cheaper service at a higher price to pick up their garbage? Kinda tough. I'd hate to have to do that, but the decisions we have to make, huh? I think everybody'd have to, like they say, the other people have said, competition is the best way to have it. If people have a choice, it's the best way to keep the stuff where you got a choice to do in there. I sure appreciate y'all time. Thank y'all for thinking about it.
Thank you, Mr. Hidalgo. I'm like OJ still, I'm a college professor too, and I'm so used to taking notes, but I can't quite keep up with you guys. Our next speaker this evening, and it'll be our last speaker, and then I'll read into the record those that are also against, but do not wish to speak tonight. Clint Quintmaw.
Good evening. Timer has started there. We've been here before. We've discussed franchise garbage in the past, soundly defeated in the past. And here we are again, trying to find a solution for a non-existing problem. You've heard all the resistance. I don't see a single person here who's for it. But I tell you who should be against it. And that's every single business in Ascension Parish. When government starts to get involved with regular businesses in Ascension Parish, it never works out for the citizens or the businesses. The only people it benefits is the politicians. I walked and knocked, I don't know, 4,000 doors, talked to 6,000 people over a 2-year period of time when I was running for parish president. Not a single individual, not one, that they had an issue with garbage pickup. Not one. Now, they do have an issue with roads, drainage, recreation. And it seems to me that's where parish government that represents me would put all of their energy in solving those issues before exploring other avenues to get involved in local businesses. You know, we just had an acquisition of People's Water, and, you know, learning of the deficiencies in that acquisition, losing 19 million gallons a month, hard to keep people on staff to manage the facility. It just doesn't sound like we need to get into any other endeavors here. As parish government, we need to focus on what we got and using our energies to solve the issues that lie before us. Let's let consumers choose. If an individual wants to choose whoever garbage provider, they feel like they're being charged too much, they feel like they're not getting their service, they have choice. And it seems like in America we're losing those choices awfully quickly. And I hate to see it here on the local level. I hate to see us run businesses out of this parish. I hate to see people unemployed, because that's exactly what this language leads to. And I'm hoping we can strike all of it. Now, as far as item number 6, Councilman Joseph knows his area, knows his district. I don't have an issue if this is West Bank exclusive. He knows better than I. But as far as this franchise parish-wide, I'm against it. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to thank each and every one of our 7 speakers this evening, and for the record, identify those who are against it as well, as I said, but choose not to speak. And that would be Mr. Scott Emo, who led us in prayer this evening. Not sure if it's Miss or Mrs., because I can't read the handwriting for the first name, but Tomplay? Is it Mr. Tomplay? What is your first name, sir? Say again? Chase, okay. I almost got that. I was going to call you Charlie. So Mr. Chase Tomplay. And last but not least, John, and I'm having trouble with handwriting again, is it Tullis? Is that correct, sir? Okay. All right, so with that, we'll close the public speaking portion of item number 5, and we'll go on to hear from the council committee members. I'm just going to summarize real briefly what we heard here tonight in the hopes that most, if not all, of the concerns of the people that spoke will be addressed by one or more of my fellow committee members. Starting in order of the speakers, Mr. Kluot, what I heard is that your concerns are, and you run a business with a lot of apartments in Baton Rouge, where you told us a story that there was only one vendor involved. It was a disaster, and the problem is solved when you have more than one in terms of competition. Mr. Melanson told us that he was a former councilman. We all know that. Welcome back, Brian, this evening, by the way. And he talked like Mr. Clintmont did about it being defeated and really why are we trying to fix something that's not broke and it would drive what I captured the competition or choice, the freedom of choice out, which is unfair. Mr. Daigle, what I heard was I'll just go with the direct quote. We don't live in Russia, we live in Ascension Parish. That's an astute observation, sir, no doubt. And you also believe that we need to allow freedom of choice. So I'm hearing the choice theme many, many times. Mr. Duplessis, I believe you were the gentleman that's a truck driver for Dale's Garbage, and you talked a good bit about how you provide, and you're proud of your company, the best and cheapest service, and if we were to go to a government franchise system, I guess if it was exclusive, not non-exclusive, you would it would result in disappointing some 8,000 plus customers, you said. Ms. Gopal, you brought up the issue of tax, and by the way, I would concur with you on that. The last time we looked at franchise garbage, I need not remind everybody there was both a franchise fee and an administrative fee. I may have the percentages wrong respectively, but one was like 7% and one was 3%. I called it then, and I'll call it what I believe it is tonight, a hidden tax. People, of course, have rejected in this parish recent tax initiatives. Lanes for Change comes to mind, sales tax attempt to help in our roads, and then Better Recreation Now to property tax to fund recreational needs. You gave some figures, 10% of 68,000 homes would result in $800,000, and quite frankly, I don't know how to answer your question. What would the parish do with that? I would further add, I think we would have to justify, do we deserve having it? I remember Mr. Dale last time warned us, and I think if the other garbage companies were here would probably say the same thing, that if we have a go with franchise garbage collection, exclusive or non-exclusive, and the parish is now saying you can do this business that you've been doing for decades anyway, and we get a cut of the pie, okay, those garbage companies will indeed be passing that fee on to the people, all of us, that are now required to have garbage collection. Mr. Hidalgo, you talked of your 36 years service to the parish and proudly boasted that it was, in your opinion, the best service, best price. And you can't read my own handwriting here. Again, y'all are going so fast. You told you were told, you believe at least last time at this committee when we deferred this to tonight, that the franchise would be removed and taken out. I need to tell you what Ms. Gupple said on that point, and I didn't mention it. I did direct legal to take it out. I thought it was too, but legal's opinion, it needs to go in because what I detected in a memorandum, which we've been admonished not to share because it has attorney-client privilege protections, that that there are some councilmen that still believe we need a government franchise garbage collection. And this document, by leaving that term in there about franchise service fee, a definition, even though it's not appearing anywhere in the text of the ordinance, I think leaves the door open at least a little bit wider than it would otherwise be open for us down the line to go to that sort of a system. The last speaker, Mr. Clintmont, gentleman, talked about, well, here it is again. We've been here before, he said. It was soundly defeated, and here we are again. He cited the example even of getting in the water business and whether we belong there. And I guess the verdict's still out on that, but I'm rapidly becoming of the mind that we may have bought a pig in a poke there. The $19 million loss, our inability, it seems, to keep certified level 3 operators extant, and our difficulties with the federal, state watchdog agency, Louisiana Department of Health, is certainly indicative of that. But Mr. Clinton made one point that's really near and dear to my heart, and I've said this before the last time because I served with Mr. Malawson and the people up here, a lot of them anyway, I guess all but Mr. Cagnolati, when we tried this in the parish before. And that is, every business should be against this. And why? Well, how would you like it? I'll give you a real vivid example. If tomorrow your local government or your state government or your federal government said you can only go to Home Depot and buy what you need for your do-it-yourself project this weekend, you can't go to Lowe's. I just think intrinsically that's wrong. And that's all I'm going to say as chair, and we're going to do this like we always do in this committee. I think last time we started off to my right, so we'll switch up and we'll start this evening with Mr. Cagnolati.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I read through the document, and it is lengthy, but the good news is it's a draft. It's not in hard, words that we have to adopt tonight. It's something that, my mic's not on? Hello? Can you hear me?
I don't know.
All right. I'm just saying that this is a
Excuse me,
draft.
can everybody hear Mr. Cagnolati? My mic seems to be much hotter. John, can you turn up Mr. Cagnolati's mic from the back, please?
Is that better?
Sounds a little better.
Better? Okay. As I said, it's a draft. It's not something that we are going to have to adopt as is. It's something that we can put more time and effort into. I think the initial, and I'll say this kind of in defense of Councilman Lawler, who's not here, the intent was that we had complaints from people that were burning trash, and not just cardboard and stuff. They were burning food items and all in a barrel. And we were getting some complaints about that. We had, in my district, Brian's for me, we had people complaining about neighbors burning creosote timbers that they had gotten off a railroad track. And I think the intent was to try to make sure that garbage is collected. Okay. Going into the contracts and the way that's done, that leaves a lot of room for discussion, a lot of room for what's right for the people, what's best for the people. Another thing that Councilman Lawler had brought up was that with multiple contractors, if they're serving the same area, and I'll use Keystone as an example, it's a huge subdivision, and it's even going to get bigger, I believe. That still have one more filing, I believe. But how many contractors serve that subdivision? Okay, I know Dale's, you have some clusters out there, don't you?
They got 3 different companies running.
Well, what Aaron had, expressed to me was that we have 3 different contractors going in there, how many days a week? Maybe 7? And one day, somebody's going in there like 2 days a week or 3 days a week, and then the others might be doing it on different days. Yeah. So I think he was concerned with the wear and tear on the parish roads.
Regulate sand and gravel hauling too.
Well, that's, we're talking about that on another front with construction materials and developers and building. But no, I just think that I'm keeping an open mind about this, and I'm glad. I do thank each and every one of you for coming out here and speaking on this. The business community and the people of Ascension Parish have to speak. They have to be heard. And I want to thank y'all for coming here tonight. Appreciate your comments, and I'll take them into consideration. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Cagnolati. Mr. Joseph.
Yeah. Look, I know there's gonna always be a problem in Ascension Parish. Water is a problem in Ascension Parish. Streets is a problem in Ascension Parish. Lighting district's the problem in Ascension Parish. That list go on and on and on, because we have dissatisfied people that don't want it. And I understand that, But when I asked for the draft for this, And I think Ms. Terry Cazzo also asked something about litter control, and that's how that became an issue, right there, Mr. Harrington?
Yes, garbage being dumped on people's lots was an issue that's what I was asked
Right.
to address.
And for me, on the west side, I get this phone call on a weekly basis about garbage on the side of the road, someone not doing it. So this been one of the things that I've been asking for the longest on the West Bank, once again. But like my good friend always Todd Lambert always say, OJ, we one parish. But it's kind of hard. It's real hard to do stuff when one want to try to do something and the other one don't want to try. I mean, that's really the reality here, for me, okay? I mean, first this here, I prefer to see franchise agreement in it. I mean, the parish have gave away a lot of stuff in the past without franchise agreement, you know? So, when we, you know, I didn't bring this up. Okay? I didn't bring this up.
Me neither.
Okay? But,
Me neither.
you know, government. We're going to talk about government a little bit. You know, and I've been getting beat up about the west side on water system, subsidizing and everything. That's not the only thing you subsidizing in this parish.
Nope.
You subsidizing sewage over here for an amount of between $800,000 to $1 million. You're subsidizing water. We have a franchise agreement with Baton Rouge Water. As of right now, they give us a franchise fee around about $500,000. Then we write back and give them that $500,000 right back. We didn't get nothing. But they make all the money. Okay? Once again, that franchise fee been there. You know? You know, I understand your situation. You know, your employees and all that. I'm not even trying to even get into that. Okay? But when we say you have 8,000 customers and we have a parish of 125,000 plus, you know, we just need to start thinking, and I understand that. And there's ways we can do it to make you happy, to make the other company happy, and make our constituent happy. But just to say no and not, you know, just eliminate all this, I have a problem with it. You know? So I'm just hoping, you know, this government here is not perfect. It is not perfect. We try to do everything we possibly can do for this parish. And we're going to get some of it wrong sometime. But are we working to correct it? I've been here for 11 years, and believe me, they are trying to correct a lot of things. When you won't holler about tax dollars, I mean, Benny, how long we been having Santa Monica levy on the books?
Longer than I've been on the council.
Okay? And I mean, I know they have constituent over there saying, what are you doing with that money? But they've been working on it. They've been working diligently and hard at it. We're not perfect. And I just hate the, you know, for me, you can criticize my side of the river about subsidizing, but you subsidize a whole lot in this parish. A whole lot. You know? And I don't like to be one side against the other side. But just don't point West Bank and holler, but you subsidize. You subsidizing this whole parish a whole lot. This your tax dollars. And that's all I have to say on that.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph. Mr. Benny Johnson.
I'm going to respectfully disagree with most of you tonight. There is a problem with garbage in the parish. I mean, it's not primary by any stretch of the imagination, but Councilman Melanson said he received calls on it. I received calls on both sides of it, whether it be people burning garbage, people dumping garbage, or vice versa. Is it a very high priority? No. Can we multitask? We should be able to. If we can't multitask and deal with more than one problem in this parish at a time, we got a problem. This is a proposal that's being brought forward. Councilman Joseph said he didn't ask for it, I didn't ask for it, but it's something that somebody felt strong enough that they wanted to bring it forward and see if we can come up with a potential answer to something that they saw as a problem. Willing to have a discussion about it. There's multiple ways of looking at it. And I don't necessarily disagree with all of it. But you sit there, one of the comments made this evening was about the public's right to choose, and that's a strong thing. I agree with that. Throw this out there, not that it's right or wrong, it's just a difference. If the government can put out an RFQ that can save every taxpayer money, use the power of government for a good, potentially, to regulate garbage, to get it to where there's only one or two or three, depending on how you want to break it up. You can, one of the several things that have been tried or talked about through the years in breaking the parish up into 3, 4, 5 districts and putting out each of those districts as a separate entity and bidding on those to where different folks can provide services to those districts. But in that district, there would be one garbage service provider for each one, and you can control that to where it'd be separate. Wouldn't have to be the same company doing it for all. It would save wear and tear on the road. It would save, from what we saw the last time, from what I remember of it, don't hold me to these numbers, but we were somewhere around $15 a month, if I remember correctly, potentially, is what they estimated we could get a bid in for to go to twice a week garbage pickup with white good and debris removal on call, as well as recycling. Now, some of that may be important to some folks, some of it's not. It's a difference. I'm not saying it's right, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that that's something that I think that we owe ourselves as the representatives of people that we represent something to look at. We can debate the franchise fee as well. As what is it being used for? Is it something that's going to be done, like Mr. Sadley said, is it just going to be going into a pot that we can throw away somewhere? I don't agree with that. But can we set it up to make sure that we have what we need to facilitate and operate something that makes our parish better? I don't know that there's anybody can ride up and down most of the roads in the parish and not see some type of garbage situation. In fact, Mr. Quintmall brought forth some pictures a few months back at a drainage board meeting of some of the bridges that were clogged up with debris. Now, 90% of that, 95% of that was definitely trees and limbs and different things like that. But if you looked into those piles, you looked at those pictures, there was a lot of trash in it. Tires, regular garbage, so forth and so on. So, I mean, to say there's not a problem, I think there is. Now, how do we resolve it? That's the big key. I think OJ's correct in the sense that, yes, he potentially can do something on the West Bank. I'm not sold. We're getting into one of the things, we're starting to segregate a bunch of different things between the East and the West Bank. And not that I want to rain on his parade to try to do anything, but there comes a point to where, you know, we gotta quit that. I've heard that several years that, you know, we don't take care of the West Bank, we don't do this with the West Bank, so forth and so on, vice versa. We are one parish, and we need to act as one, and I would like to see that. Only difference that I would say is if we put something together similar to what we had before, maybe spell it out and address some of the concerns that the folks in here have. As far as the franchise fee and other things, put it out to a vote of the people. Let the people decide. You know, I've heard from folks that were sitting up here and in other locations, well, I don't want to answer for garbage. Well, I'm getting phone calls on garbage already, okay? And I understand the concerns about the type of service, whether it's good or bad, when you do those types of things. But we ought to be smart enough. I think we got the right people in this room as well as in this parish that can sit there and put certain criteria in line to make sure that whoever would get, or however you do it, whether it's one single thing or several, that they're held accountable. There's penalties involved with it. OJ mentioned the franchise agreement we have with Baton Rouge Water. There's a lot of good that came out of that. There's a lot of fire hydrants being put in because of that franchise agreement. But there's some things that I don't agree with within that franchise agreement, and he's exactly right. The money that comes back in and any type of problems that we have in dealing with Baton Rouge Water or Ascension Water, excuse me? We don't have a staff that we can go out there and call upon to go out there and make sure that we're doing this right. We're not being compensated for the people that we have to train or the people that we do have to call out there and go take care of situations like that. I'm not debating the right or wrong of it, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just saying basically it's one of those things that we have to think about. And if we can put something in place to make sure that it's managed correctly and it's covered by that, you know, it's not all bad. You know, I understand it's a personal thing for you, Mr. Dale, and you're in the business, and it's not something that me or anybody else is sitting up here saying we want to drive anybody out of business. That's not what it's about. In any way, shape, or form, it's not what I'm about. I would just like to see that if we can come up with a reasonable solution to this, that everybody has an equal shot, and we do better service to the people that we represent.
I hadn't got a phone call yet. I'd think about it.
Well, this time around, no, sir, but we have had conversations in the past, and before I got on the council, they've had conversations in the past, and so, but it's not about going back and blaming anybody. It's about, I think there is an issue, and I think, you know, is this the right answer to it? I don't know. I've looked at it, I haven't studied enough. There's some questions you guys brought up tonight that I would like to go back and I'll have some conversation with Mr. Parrington about it. But to me, the simplest fix for it is we address some of the concerns that y'all brought up here tonight. We put it in a whether we come up with a decision whether we want to do separate districts, whether we want to do the parish as a whole, and we put it on the ballot and let the people decide. Because there is a legitimate argument that when you get 3 or 4 garbage trucks coming down your road once a week or twice a week, whatever it may be, that's adding to the wear and tear on the roads. Is it all of it? No, it's not. And I'm not going to sit here and act like it is, but it is a concern. I got a call about 3 weeks ago. Can you do anything? What's the problem? I get up and I got 3 or 4 garbage trucks. One of them's coming in before daylight, waking me up, and then I get out there and my kids are doing this, and the other one's coming down the road, blah, blah, blah. Garbage cans are left out in the middle of the street and all that other kind of stuff. Look, there's a lot of problems with it. But I look forward to looking over this and having some conversation with folks and seeing if we can address some of those things within this. I am not for a parish-wide ordinance that says, you know what, you got to have garbage service. And I don't care who it is, and that's all we're going to do. Because at the end of the day, how do you regulate it? How do you enforce it? You know, if we're going to do something, let's do it. And you may not like me for it because I'm going to support it to put it out there on the ballot, but at the end of the day, we can have a discussion. We can agree to disagree. But if we believe it to be the right thing, stand up, express that to the people we represent, take in their considerations, and represent. And if it costs me this job, so be it. You know, I didn't get in here to be a popularity contest. I got in here to try to help people. And that's what I'm trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I'm going to address 3 different remarks made by committee members, and then we'll, unless you guys want a second round, we'll go back to have an action this evening or not. Mr. Cagnolati, you talked about Mr. Lawler, who's not here tonight, and his concerns about multiple trucks going down the same roads when we have a multiple free market system like we have. And I share that concern with both, if it's a concern of yours and Mr. Lawler. I'll go on record to say that. But what I'm not sure that was heard here tonight, but I heard it from the back of the room a little bit. I'm not sure the volume made it up here into the committee and the film, is when you start that, what about gravel truck haulers? What about school buses? And concerning that, I know I was at an RPEC meeting once where the speaker was the then superintendent, no longer with us, of the school board and myself on separate issues. And we got into a little thing about that, and that's when I realized how much of a sacred cow that is. But there's no doubt these buses hauling bunches and bunches of kids weigh as much as garbage trucks and so forth, but they're sacred cows and they don't have to pay. And, you know, we still live in, I think, a society where we have to be careful as a governing authority that we're being fair. Also, I learned as a result of that, I did some homework. I talked with Mr. Dale, I'll freely admit that. And I talked with the Republic guys and others when we tried this years ago, government franchise garbage, and they clearly indicated to me they pay some pretty significant taxes, albeit maybe not to the parish, but to the state to use those roads. And I see a lot of hand nods out there from Mr. Dale's truck driver tonight, and Mr. Dale himself. So my comment to that, Mr. Lawler and Mr. Cagnolati, is that we really believe that garbage trucks are truly tearing up the roads, and I'm not absolutely certain. I haven't seen any studies that would show that for sure or whatever. Even the school buses, and I'm trying to talk about the other way, then we, through their license fee, can take care of that just like the state does, rather than drive a whole bunch of people out of business. And as Forrest Gump said, that's all I'm going to say about that. Now, Mr. OJ, another one of my esteemed colleagues up here, love all these guys, believe it or not, raised his volume and was a little upset about, you know, people on my side of the river, the East Bank, subsidizing. Tired of hearing that in the West Bank, and I'm not a big fan of that approach necessarily either. But I will say this, OJ, whether I or you like it or not, I have to answer just like you do in the West Bank to my constituents on the East Bank, and whether they're right or not or wrong, they do view it that way. I mean, there's no doubt. I've seen the numbers from the assessor's office that the amount of tax paying from the north part of the Ascension Parish in just 2 districts alone, okay, it's like it's the tail that wags the dog in all of Ascension Parish. It's where all the money's coming from. And why? Well, this is just a simple fact. You know, this ain't playing a race card or anything. The homes up there are expensive. Taxes are on how much you pay for the home, minus the homestead exemption, and so they got all this money, and you know, and there's been the moves since I've been a councilman. Well, shame on the parish. Let's just incorporate Prairieville. Well, that died because they can't go it alone because the monies are tied up in all kinds of bond issues and things like that. So it'll never be. And of course, that's the other problem. Where's the growth continue to be? Up in Peeville. Mr. Joseph has indicated in the past they haven't built, you said, OJ, a subdivision since 1973 on the West Bank. So all I would say about that is I have empathy for it. I don't want to make a East Bank, West Bank thing about it, but I got to answer to my guys too. And my guys are telling me that's what's going on. We're subsidizing. Mr. Johnson, you said you respectively disagree with everybody that spoke here tonight. And you talked a little bit about the burning problem and everything. I don't need to remind you that this committee, with my leadership, tried to pass a burn ordinance. Yourself and several other people, Mr. Law actually was with me on that one, the only person, we couldn't get it out of committee. So we had a chance to solve some of that right there, but we couldn't do it. We were told, well, the state has a law, we don't need one. And I kind of argued, well, Gonzales has one, the city, so we're like the sandwich in the middle. The parish can't, the city can have it, the state can have it, we can't. And then there was talk about Mr. Wiley wouldn't enforce it, and I made comments like, I didn't think as a legislative body, as lawmakers, we have to necessarily check with enforcement to see whether they would uphold laws that we pass or not. I gave examples like, you might remember this, if the speed sign says 20 miles an hour, and Mr. Jeff Wiley, Sheriff Wiley, thinks it should be 45, so he's not going to enforce it, that's a problem. That's a problem. One thing too, Betty, you made a comment, quote, I didn't say, you made a comment about that I said something about the money going into this $800,000 Ms. Gupple talked about, if there was a franchise fee and an administration fee and we went to the system, would go into a pot somewhere and be wasted. I never said any such thing. Let me finish, and then let me finish, sir, and then you can say it, okay? What I did say is, and we can go back and look at the film, and then everybody can see what I said. I know what I said, is that we owe the people an explanation if we decide to go with this of what we're going to do with that money. That's all I said. I'm not saying the parish would waste it or not. Now, does the parish need money? You bet. That's why we try for more taxes. But the people, you know, we had an org chart a few nights ago. Objected, you might have saw that because of org charts I saw in the last, and I've seen 3 or 4 of them in the last several weeks, had the people up top, stemming down to the president and the 2 by shaded colors elected groups, the council, okay? And in the chart I see now, the people have been removed. We are public servants. And again, I heard 7 people tonight speak against this, 3 more who chose not to speak but filled out red cards. Years ago when we tried it, it was even worse than that. And several speakers mentioned that. I thought it was over with, but it's not. But I'm just the lowly chairman of this committee, and the people themselves, as well as my fellow committee members, have to understand I have to do the will of this committee. I think everyone knows where I stand. I've said everything else. I know we're all interested in getting to the next two items, which ought to go real quickly so we can go home. So do we need a second round, gentlemen, before we decide what we're going to do actionable tonight?
Well, I
I'd
mean,
like to clarify something, Ms. Sally, if I can.
The chair recognizes Mr. Johnson.
I don't believe I said that. You said. I just basically made a comment that the money does not need to go into a pot that is not explained to the people. And that, in reality, that agrees with what you basically said. So to make it sound like I did, I'm throwing you out there when I didn't, I don't appreciate that happening. And you need to, in my opinion, you need to control that. They're exactly right. I mean, no, we don't need a franchise fee just to collect a franchise fee. If we have a legitimate reason for it, then by all means, put it out there and let's see if it floats. But if it doesn't, and everybody's got the right to their opinion. But if there's things that are out there, it does so. I'll say it again. It does not need to be a pot that just goes into that we don't explain what we're doing with it or just to collect it. That's not right. That's not what I'm about, and that's not what I want to do.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I think the YouTube video of this meeting will show exactly what I said, and will also show what you said, and then what I said in rebuttal, and not what you said in rebuttal. So we'll just leave that alone, and we'll just say, if no one wants a second round, whatever, the chair will entertain a motion.
I have a question then, Don.
Question, Mr. Joseph.
Legal, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Parent. When we ask you, I'm gonna say, when I asked you to draft up something for the West Bank, and then it came to be the whole parish, well, as usual. This come from, how many different parishes you looked at?
I looked at multiple parishes that have garbage collection and do it various ways. And so what I did is I manipulated it to show where it would be by the utility district. So if you want to do it all as one parish, you can, or you can do it separate by the utility districts. That's where it came from.
Mm-hmm. And, so the franchise fee, that's up to us, correct?
All I did was define a franchise fee, because some people want it, some people don't. You don't have to charge one. You don't have to have franchises. I said there's 3 ways based on this ordinance that you could operate this. If you're gonna be in the solid waste management business, then you need to make sure you got licensed solid waste management operators. You don't want everybody riding down the street with a pickup truck saying they're in the business and having a contract with that. So the way I read this ordinance, it allows you 3 ways to do it. You can license those as you do today, let everybody do it today and license them. You can have non-exclusive franchises, or you could have an exclusive franchise, which would require that you bid it out. And you could do that by utility district, you could do it parish-wide, you can make districts, you can do whatever you want to do. This is just the basis of the start of where you want to go.
So, and that's one of the biggest things too, that everyone think that this is, once again, it's not exactly the ordinance. It's certain ways we can do it, work a contract or vice versa. So the contract can, however you want to do it in the parish, you have those 3 or 4 different ways you can make them.
Yes, sir.
You know, once again, me personally, I'm a franchise guy because I like to see it feed. So, Doctor, you also say, once again, I really don't like the idea we're splitting, but this is the way it is. My constituent, I understand your constituent, I understand Benton's constituent. That's why we take a vote. I ain't guaranteeing that I'm gonna win anything here. You know, I ain't guaranteeing you gonna win anything here. But if I do not fight for them, who gonna fight for them? If you don't stand up for yours, who gonna stand up for them? So I understand that. That's no problem. And that's a good battle to have with a good conversation. And I enjoy the public come and give me their input. You know, so, but once again, I'm going to request that, you know, ACUD 1 goes into a garbage collection agreement for the public. One more question, Mr. Parent.
Yes, sir.
Do do the parish have the right, without a election, because we have utility district, to go with a garbage, which come by the vote of this council?
Yes, you have the right to issue. You can go into, your solid waste management is something that local government's authorized to do, to regulate. And under our charter and under state law, you have the right to issue franchises if that's how you decide to do it.
So, this is a discussion for the public. We're not trying to do nothing without the public input. It's just letting everyone know what option we have. Benny want a great option to go up there for election. That, once again, that is a choice. But, as you know, you need enough for us to vote to put it on the ballot. And what we're gonna put on the ballot and what it's gonna say. I mean, I'm not against none of that. But, Doc, you brought up a good point. I have to bring this in up. You want sewage on the north end of the parish for your constituent because it's the fastest growing one. I'm for that 110%. But we can't come to agreement on how to do it or how much to charge the public. Because if we put a price tag on it, it become a battle. A real serious battle. So, I mean, we're stuck in a dilemma every time we bring up something. And I understand both sides of it, okay? And like you said earlier, that's why we get paid the big bucks, to make a decision, That's my comment.
And I thank both of you gentlemen for the further comments, but I would just have to say this, and I failed to do this when Benny was talking the first time, because it's something I also agree with him. I'm quoting you, Benny, you talked about, hey, look, comes down to it, let's put it on the ballot. You said, let the people decide. Well, I could support that. I mean, yeah. And OJ, you just said essentially the same thing. I'm going to quote you, not trying to do anything here tonight without the public's approval. Says the same thing. So we can get that. Now, whether or not we can get to a product that we can all agree upon and what ballot on, I would never argue that, because let me just go ahead and use your comment about sewer as an example. You're darn tootin' I want it in Prairieville, because I don't want a child waking up tomorrow playing in the ditch and getting polio. I've said it before. I can raise my volume too, okay? I grew up in the iron lung generation in the 50s. And I have personal experience with this in my family, where a child played in the ditch and got polio, and to this day is crippled, was in an iron lung. So yeah, we need it. And by the way, the comment about actually we couldn't succeed and we couldn't come to an agreement, well, that's not the people's fault. That's our fault. In fact, we did come to an agreement. This council voted on it. It wasn't the biggest, percentage, but it was a majority, and we directed a group to proceed with something called a public-private partnership that fell apart, truth be known, because the vendor involved in that, who was originally part of the deal, pulled up stakes on the table. And we did nothing to force that individual back to the table. Instead, we abolished it, and now we're back to square one again, and it's something that's been going on for decades and decades and decades. So I'm not looking to fight with you guys tonight. I'm frankly pretty worn out, as I'm sure you are, from the organizational chart meeting of just a few nights ago, and learned this afternoon we might be having another one next week on top of our regular council meeting. Merry Christmas. You're right. The job is overwhelming. It doesn't pay as much as it could. We could all, I've said this before, I love this analogy, be slapping mayonnaise at a bun on a Burger King and make more money. It is largely a thankless task and so forth, but let's not make any excuses for it. I do agree also with Mr. Johnson to comment, I wasn't elected to be popular. And that goes for not just the people I serve, but the colleagues that I serve with. Now, I have an opinion. I believe just like everyone else in this room that spoke tonight, as well as the people up here in this dais, have an opinion too. And in the prayer, I noticed Mr. Emmel thanked that we could maybe just get along and let the good Lord guide our decision-making process and so forth. But we're to a precipice tonight. I hope, however, I wasn't fooled, because by the way, okay, this didn't move from an East Bank, morph from an East Bank, I don't mean to correct OJ, to West Bank issue. This got on this agenda as chairman God strike me dead if it ain't so, because Terry Castle approached me and asked me to put it on here. And it was put on with the express purpose, I was told, because she was having complaints by constituents in her district about neighbors who weren't doing the right thing, legally burning their garbage, taking it to a landfill or whatever, but let it spill over in the front in servitude areas of the property where neighbors were complaining. And that is the only reason I let this old wound be opened again as chairman, so that we could look at that. And that is, I thought, or was the intent of this before it morphed into, and I do realize, Mr. Parrington, you did good and hard work in looking at all the parishes you looked at. You indicated you did this off of Livingston Parish.
Basically, Livingston, but looking
Right,
at
but I'd
ours
have to
also.
guess that, and I don't know about them, correct me if I'm wrong, that the reason it's, that glossary term is in that ordinance that you used as a base plate for this one in Ascension Parish is because it is used elsewhere in the text, because they do have some sort of franchise system, which we don't. And let me just ask you, Mr. Dale, would you step back up the mic? I have one penetrating question as well from something Mr. Joseph said. Do you pay, two questions, do you pay taxes to use the roads in any way for your
Oh,
road
yeah,
shop?
we pay a
Would you
heavy-
please explain to this committee what taxes you pay and who you pay them to?
Yeah, the DOTD, we pay a heavy road use tax. I believe it's probably about $650, $680 a year per truck, 6 trucks, something.
Okay.
Into there. So it's a heavy road use tax we pay.
Okay.
Sure do.
And to do business in the parish per se, do you pay the parish of Ascension any money?
Oh, yeah. We pay the occupational fees, which is based on how much money I make a year. Each year, there's a chart that we pay, a price, how much it is, I think.
And my guess is they'd be taking these same two payments that you make to the state and to this local government authority. Your competitors would be doing the same thing, right? There's no reason they'd be treating you differently.
Oh, with trucks, yeah, everybody that runs the trucks has to pay heavy road use tax. You got to go through all the filings, then you got to get permits, then you got to pay taxes for the permits you buy and everything else. So it's a lot of money involved in big trucks.
I thank you, sir, and I'm going to stop there.
So every tire you buy, you pay a FET tax, which is $32 for every
Right.
tire you buy on them is FET tax. You buy a new truck, you pay $32,000 FET taxes.
Mhm.
So they kind of tax you to death every which way you turn when you get a truck.
And a third, I said two questions. I think you've already said this last time. I want to remind everybody. If this government, in its infinite wisdom, decides to do a exclusive or non-exclusive government franchise garbage collection system, and we impose upon the company or companies, depending on whether it's going to be a monopoly or not, right? We never even talked about the monopoly argument tonight, a franchise fee and an administration fee. Okay, let's just say we did that. I lost my train of thought, but it was a stinger. I mean, I just got to tell you, man. But at least out of this morphed the monopoly idea. Let me say something about that real quickly, okay? Everybody's up here talking about all other examples of where we have franchise, as if that makes it okay to do this.
I don't know.
I'm going to tell you for a fact, I don't like franchise, period, where we don't have, first of all, if we charge the fee, what exactly are we getting out of this? And it goes back to my comment. Are we going to just say now, tomorrow, we're going to charge anybody that wants to have a home improvement center a franchise fee?
Well, yeah, any
Or are we going to
grocery
decide
store,
that Lowe's, you
barber-
got better prices than
Take barbershops, all your
than Home
offices,
Depot? So
doctor's
you have
office,
to
franchise.
cease and desist? I just don't. I'm a quit, and I apologize for my senior moment, but this is obviously an emotional topic for me. I'm ready to. If everybody else is, we can move on.
Well, I'd heard Mr. O'Neill Parrington, didn't you say that you could have it on the West Bank or the East Bank? It
The
could
way
be
this is
both.
set up,
or
you can do it
anything.
by
That's what
districts.
Mr. Oliver's shooting for it to get on the West Bank.
Well, that's
He
actually our
said,
next
"Can't
agenda
just
item.
do
We
it
can
the
just cover
West Bank
that
and-
straight away if we don't do anything here with
and
this
leave
one.
it off the East Bank?
But it's not going to help Terry, and the sincere part of what I started with, or
Well,
anybody
that's-
else that gets
like
a
you say, the
complaint
problem-
about.
Problem with Miss Terry is burning garbage. Like you said, it was ordinance, and that's a totally
tried.
different feel when people burning garbage and throwing litter. That's got nothing to do with franchise.
It's more than that, Mr. Dale.
Well, yeah, I know it's more than that, but it's got nothing to do with a franchise.
Right, well, Mr.
And as long as
Chairman.
we do maybe a non-exclusive, like you say, to keep companies in.
Okay, you have a question for Mr. Dale?
For Mr. Parrington.
Yes.
O'Neill, just for clarification, and during OJ's comments a minute ago, and y'all were talking back and forth. What, we talked about whether it be the franchise agreement or the parish going out and doing the garbage service. You mentioned state law and some other. What gives the parish the right or the ability to do that? Whether it be garbage or there's municipalities and governmental that do gas, water, sewer, garbage, and I mean, any utility is basically something, as I understand it, that we have this
Yes,
right, if you will,
yes.
to do
Title
some type of.
33, in Title 33 of the revised statutes gives you the authority to regulate solid waste management.
Okay, wait.
Solid waste management is garbage on private property. Littering is garbage on public property. Basically, that's what it turns out to be.
Okay.
I know what I was going to say before. Thank you, Betty. I knew I'd get it back if I thought long ago. This fee that you pay locally is occupational license, however you describe it and everything. What does the parish do? They just, as long as you give them the money, they'll just approve it, or do they ask you, do you know what you're doing, Mr. Dale? And are you?
No, it goes by my taxes and stuff. You know, I buy taxes, but I pay an occupational license fee. But then I do pay taxes to the parish, you know, on my shops.
Because I was commenting, the reason I
else,
wanted to bring this up is because comments made tonight that any Tom, Dick, and Harry could just come with a truck and say, I'm a garbage collector. Could that happen in our parish right now?
Well, anybody could, but you'd have to go apply and get you a permit.
So ultimately, we have the ability to say no to those types of people,
Well,
right?
I guess so,
And if
as
we
long
did
as
due
you-
diligence, shouldn't we know that they're?
You can go get a license, you can go get a license, you just
You're not,
basically go.
Mr. Dale, you're not licensed through the parish for that, are you?
Oh, yeah.
Are you? Okay.
See, that's what's confusing with me with this memo that we got from Mr. Parrington, because it talks about, in summary, the ordinance will do three things. I'll skip number one. Number two says it will require all solid waste collectors to have an Ascension Parish agreement to service Ascension Parish residents. And you're telling me, sir, we've already got that.
He has an occupational license.
License.
We don't
Not
license garbage
No.
collectors in this parish.
That's why, well, you can call it what you want it, but you do have an approval that other people would have to have as well to serve people up on garbage, right?
Well,
And you don't have
No.
approval from us.
The occupational
What's
license.
that? Yeah, I do have an occupational
I know,
license through the
but
parish of
Mr. Dale,
Ascension.
I have an
But
occupational
everybody
license.
can get an occupation
Hang on,
license.
if
Yeah.
you want to be recognized,
Yeah,
ask the
well,
chair.
that's-
Let's let him speak.
Up there.
Well, let me, if you don't
Hey,
mind.
Go ahead, OJ.
All right. Dale, we're gonna just stick with occupation license,
Okay.
okay? Yes, you go to the sales tax office and you get an occupation license. We do not approve that, the sales tax occupation. The sales tax approve that. But as a parish, we don't have anything to do with your
Occupational license.
license or anything else. You deal with DEQ and everybody
Oh, a
else.
state license, yeah. But
Yeah.
I do have to have an occupational license because I'm domiciled in Ascension Parish. I have to have an occupational license in Ascension Parish to run in Ascension Parish.
Right, but it goes straight sales tax.
The other two companies that come in here don't have to have an occupational license in Ascension Parish because they domicile
Somewhere
in
else.
Florida and Arizona. So they don't
all
have
right.
to run an occupational
And they
license.
don't even come to us.
Nope.
They don't even come to us.
Okay, so,
I have to because
so
I'm
my question now
domiciled here.
on this subject is now back to Mr. Parrington. So what I just read on your second reason as to why, what this ordinance would do, require all solid waste collectors to have an Ascension Parish agreement, we argue now, to service the residents in Ascension Parish, whether or not that's it's a license, it's this or that. Can we, O'Neill, can we do DUE, diligence, that would render someone like Mr. Dale that wanted to come in, or not like him, but into the business, and decide whether or not we thought they were worthy enough to do business without charging a franchise fee? Now, I'm not asking, do we have permission under Title 33?
The parish can do.
Clearly,
what they-
we do,
The parish can do that.
right?
The parish, what this ordinance would do.
So if we
let's
had,
make-
do we have concerns about that right now? We have some customers probably complaining, even against Mr. Dale, huh? All right, because you can't please everybody. But, I've heard a lot of speakers tonight say, we ain't got anything broke. What are we trying to do here? So I think we could do due diligence, DODUE, if that was really a problem. I don't think it is, without charging a franchise fee. Just because we're entitled to something don't mean we should do it. What I think we should do, frankly, is regain the trust of the people we serve and quit asking them for more money in hard times, okay? and do something with the resources that we have. Because that's what they're telling us to do, but, you know, that's just my opinion.
Well, I think until it gets to be a major problem, if Oliver just wants it in the West Bank, I think maybe y'all ought to approve this.
Well, that's the next item, and
franchise to the
we
West
certainly,
Bank for his
we
utilities.
certainly can act on the next
leave
one and
us
not
alone
this
over
one.
here.
We have all possibilities here. We could act on both of them, one of them, neither one of them. I just hope it is my sincere hope, it's my sincere hope that I was not duped into putting something on this agenda that has morphed into something more. I see a lot of heads and I can read lips, you were, than what is intended to be. Because when I serve my fellow colleagues and the citizens I serve, and they ask me for something, I'm very sincere about that. And if there's any hidden quote agendas, I'm not saying there was, but certainly we're having a lot of problem getting rid of a definition. Let's think about this. A definition that's in the glossary of this law that was lifted primarily from Livingston Parish in their ordinance, but yet it's never used in the text. And then in the summary, I hear it can do that. Let me read number 3, too, so we make no mistake about that. Mr. Parrington writes, the third thing that in summary that the ordinance will allow us to do is allow a utility district, and I got a call on this afternoon from Mr. Brian Melanson, and I think that's why he's here tonight. Pay attention, Brian. Allow the utility district to determine what methodology is best to accomplish tasks, and there are 3 of them listed. A simple collector's agreement with the parish. Whoops, that's what Doc was just talking about. With due, D-O-D-U-E diligence. B, a non-exclusive franchise. Okay? And C, a publicly bid exclusive franchise, i.e. monopoly, that we fought off last time. And again, if we need the money that bad, if you want to put it on the people and have the garbage collection companies go ahead and increase their prices, because they'll pass that administrative and franchise fee on, and we got the extra $800,000, let's tell them that's what we want to do. But let's do it without putting good citizens who have done good, faithful, and loyal business in this parish for almost 4 decades, is that right, Mr. Dale? I think you said 36 years last time, out of business. Can we just somehow get an amen for that?
Amen.
Well, we don't need the amen from you, gentlemen, but. Okay, we're timed to, I promised my wife, she's over there looking at me, this is date night, we're gonna go out and have dinner. I made that mistake 2 nights ago when we had a 3.5 hour meeting. I'm sorry, babe, it'll all be closed again, but strike that from the record. We're down to either have an action here or not. What is the pleasure of this committee?
Can I just, I'm asking. O'Neill,
Yes, sir.
I mean, I hate to ask you this, because I see what Doc asked, okay? Everything he just said, we have the right, this council, have the right to choose to negotiate that. He can leave the language in here, but when it's time to negotiate, he can leave our franchise. Because it's this all it means. In this here draft right here, it says that this is what franchise fees, you have the option to do this. You have those 3 or 4 options. Just the language is in here.
It's my opinion that if you want to get into the solid waste management business in the parish, you have to pass an ordinance. Then you determine how you want to do it. But you got to pass an ordinance before you can start regulating it. So that's all. That's my opinion. How you regulate it is after that.
And this council have to agree on the contract
Yes.
before we give it to anyone.
Right.
So if it have franchise fee in that contract, we can stricken that out of there.
You can do without franchises. You can do it however you want to do it, but you're going to have to pass an ordinance that says you're giving yourself the authority to regulate solid waste management before you can do it anyway.
Yes, sir.
So I'm just going to say that I was tricked. Okay, I thought this was about keeping people safe, keeping their health good, their welfare, that we all put our hands up and swore to, because neighbors aren't responsible and are spilling their garbage on them. Clearly, it's much, much more than that now, and I'll begin tonight, if it goes this way, before it even happens, to apologize to the people. But you know the old cliche, fool me once, fool me twice. Again, What is the pleasure of this committee? I need a motion.
Make a motion, take it under advisement until, someone else wants to put it back on the agenda, discuss that at a later date.
Is that a motion to postpone indefinitely?
Yes, sir.
Do I have a second to postpone indefinitely?
Second.
I have a motion to postpone this item number 5, which is parish-wide solid waste management ordinance, by Mr. Benny Johnson, the second by Mr. John Cagnalotti. Any further discussion? Any objection?
I just wanna, I'm against.
Mr.
Not
Joseph.
Not because what's going on here, it's just because item number,
The next one.
the next one, that's it, that's all.
We're going to give you a day in court, in this courtroom, in a moment on number 6. Any objections? Hearing none, that motion carries. Item number 6, solid waste collection, ACD number 1. Mr. Oliver Joseph, you are on, sir.
Real simple, I would like to just adopt item number 6 for ACUD number 1 and make it the ordinance for the ACUD number 1 to do garbage collection on the West Bank.
Do you want to make that in the form of a?
That is my motion
of a
to
motion?
adopt
Do I hear a second?
the drafted solid waste management ordinance for ACUD 1.
Is there anybody here tonight from the West Bank that wants to speak on this? I think the answer is no. I don't have any cards. Anybody might have come late? No public comment. So we need a second or discussion.
Well, you can't have a franchise out there without having an ordinance regulating solid waste management. And you can't pass, ACUD number 1 can't pass ordinances.
I would recommend.
So you, wait, that's good. So this parish, O'Neill, you're saying this council, even if it would only be a recommendation anyway, but it went up to the full council, could not pass an ordinance that's exclusively for the West Bank.
We
As
have
this-
to pass an ordinance and then allow the utility district to do it, is what I'm saying.
So his motion is invalid.
I don't know what it is, I'm just saying, you can't you can't pass an ordinance.
What is your motion again, OJ?
Well, Mr. O'Neill.
I thought I heard him say he wanted.
I would like to
I
adopt.
thought I heard him say he wanted to take
You
your
want that
proposal
passed
that we just did in item 5 and use it for item 6. We can't do that.
That's right. He said you can't do it.
You can
That's
read
why
it,
I
you got a
was against it.
utility district, the utility district you need a solid waste management ordinance for the utility district to enact a solid waste management plan. The district does not have to enact a plan, that's what the second thing does, it talks about the plan of how to do it. But without an ordinance, we don't have any of these terms or anything like that, is what I'm trying to explain. The East Bank doesn't have to do this if you don't want to, if you'd like.
Right, well, we passed that when the gavel went down on 5. We're on item number 6, so.
Right, and item number 6 would be him
But Doc-
doing it on his side of the river, but you don't have an ordinance, so he can't do it.
Doc, I opposed the last one before, but you say it was unanimous, so what the hell?
Wait, we can, if I've deprived you of a vote, we can have, anybody can offer a motion to reconsider it, voted on the prevailing side.
That's the reason I opposed it, Doc. That's
Well,
why I
okay,
say
so-
I have nothing against it. I say I
So
oppose it.
so I heard,
for the
I said
reason
here,
why I can't do number
excuse me,
6.
point of order, parliamentary procedure issue here. The gavel went down on what I thought also was a 4-0 vote. So you voted on the prevailing side. Sir, you are therefore at this meeting entitled to have a motion to reconsider. Are you making said motion?
I would like to make a motion to reconsider my vote for item number 5.
Okay,
I'll second that.
okay. Any discussion? Any objection? We will reconsider the vote for item number 5. It's been motioned and second that we postpone indefinitely by Mr. Johnson and Cagnalotti respectively. Any objection?
I do.
Roll call, Madam Secretary. I'll put my skirt on. Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Joseph,
No.
Mr. Cagnalotti,
Yes.
myself is yes. 3-1, motion carries. So we're back past item 5 again into number 6.
You just want to pass it. There ain't nothing to discuss on it, Doc. I don't
Somebody's
have
gotta
anything to
skip
say. My
Okay.
people want something, but they can't get it because I can't pass an ordinance.
Well-
You know, we're used to that.
You can bring it back up. It's indefinite
You know?
doesn't mean, you want to bring it back. Number 7,
They can't do an independent ordinance on number 6 for the West
let,
Bank?
let it go, Mr. Dale. My advice to you, sir. My wife,
Out of
my
order.
wife wants to eat dinner tonight. Number 7, discussion of subdivision approval denial processes. And it's something that I put on the agenda.
Got
If
a
we could,
speaker card.
Mr. Connolly put up, Yes. While that's up there, we'll have the speaker come forward. Mr. Jeff Pettit, who will be speaking red card against.
Well, I'm not sure if I'm for or against.
Okay.
So I wish we had white cards.
We'll
back.
call it a neutral, neutral color.
As I understand this discussion, this is to consider taking away, making the Planning and Zoning Commission advisory. Am I correct in that?
It's, when we get into it in a minute, it's gonna, if it were to go down, it would make the planning commission recommend, that normally signs off when they make a decision on preliminary and final plats. They would have to be doing that as a form of a recommendation to the council, much in the same way they do when they make zoning decisions, like from, let's say, medium residential to mixed use or something like that.
I'm totally in support of that recommendation.
So you would like your card to be green?
Well, it's kind of hard to tell what's what here. But I'd like to go back to the white cards and surprise you when I get up here.
Sir, you'll have to take that up with Chairman Donovan. That was not my brain.
The reason for it's real simple. I would rather my elected representative have the vote, the final say on subdivision, the preliminary plats and the final plats, as opposed to 5 appointed planning and zoning commissioners, or 7, whatever. I'd rather my elected official, I feel I have some accountability there with my vote and the fact that I can reach out via email or a phone call. And I do get return emails and phone calls, and I do appreciate that. So I am strongly in favor of the parish council to do the job as y'all vote on everything else. So that's where I stand.
Thank you, Mr. Pettit, and thank you for staying under 3 minutes despite my interruptions. Okay, so what I captured was that you would rather elected officials, and this could be the only public speaker tonight, make the final decision on planning decisions like they, rather than having a bunch of, a group of appointed individuals make the same decision. All right, by way of introduction tonight, gentlemen, if you look in your packet, it's on the screen now for everyone at home to see. What I did was ask our planning director, Jerome Fournier, to give me information on surrounding parishes to Ascension. Of course, we know what we do, and you see it there in the top row. As to zoning commission, which is rezoning issues, whether or not the parishes you see listed, Ascension, St. James, Livingston, Iberville, East Baton Rouge, make recommendations to the council, yes or no, and whether or not are their decisions final, with the same type of situation under the planning commission on subdivision issues. And by the way, we could have went further because besides subdivision issues, you do have a thing called site issues, which is not a dividing of the plat up into a whole lot of pieces and building a lot of home sites, but obviously like businesses. Like we had recently, for example, with Crawfish Aquatics in my district on Highway 73, as well as the hospital that they put there. In fact, I don't know what happened, but last night I believe there was a contract agreement to put yet a church on there as well. And again, looking then in 2 columns, make recommendations to the council and decisions of whether or not the decisions are final. And what I found out, and you can see by the footnotes down there, by calling the planning directors, and the telephone number supplied to me by Mr. Fournier for the parishes of St. James, Livingston, Iberville, and East Baton Rouge, and of course looking in our own Unified Land Development Code, is that for zoning commission, rezoning issues, St. James and Livingston, by the way, don't even have zoning laws, so they don't even have this, quote, headache or so forth, but we can skip over in a minute and look at the planning commission. But Iberville, in Iberville, the same way, but East Baton Rouge does, and they do what we do. Their decisions are not final. They make recommendations to the full council. So you see the yes, no, repeat. If we look, though, on the planning side of the table to the right, okay, we, for planning subdivision issues, in terms of making recommendations to council, the answer is no, and decisions then of the planning commission, it's 2 separate commissions there right now, zoning and planning, are final, so the answer is yes. If we look for planning decisions, though, even in those parishes of St. James, Livingston, Iberville that don't have zoning, we see a different picture. We see for St. James and Livingston, yes and yes. In the footnotes you can read down there if you want to look at it. The Unified Land Development Code, Section 106-100, entitled Preliminary Approval Determination in St. James will show you that that's a yes, according to their planning director. If you look for Livingston, the second footnote, speaking to Natalie Allen, the Planning Department Office Manager, Livingston's code is silent on the issue of their commission's authority to make final subdivision decisions. But you'll find that in Section 1348, she said, but in Section 7-06 of their homeroom charter, it provides for, and you can see the language, no boards or commissions shall have any administrative or legislative authority, and in practice, final decisions on, in other words, what they're actually doing on subdivision approvals or denials are made by Livingston's council. So I think it's fair to say under decisions of final for St. James and for Livingston, the answer is no and no, which is unlike us. East Baton Rouge Parish, oh, and one more, Iberville, you see the triple footnote, requires council approval, watch this, not even after, but prior, that's a key word, to the Planning Commission's approving of the same. That can be found in their homeroom charter in Section 2-11. Now, speaking into Planning Director Frank Duke in East Baton Rouge, Planning Commission decisions, he says, on subdivision proposals are considered to be final as their Unified Land Development Code, Section 1348, there's that word again, I see O'Meal left, is silent. What I've learned in our own parish and what I learned from Mr. Duke is when it's silent on something, it's silent. So what happens then is you've got to appeal. There is no appeal process in East Baton Rouge. It goes right to the courts. But they're like us. No recommendations are made to the council on planning decisions in East Baton Rouge. Their decisions are final. So what I'm proposing to do, the second thing in your packet, is to emulate more St. James, Livingston, and Iberville, because the cry of the people is, as you just heard from Mr. Pettit, people speak to me about this a lot, is we should do like we do for zoning. We're answerable to the people who elected us. And when things don't go their way, I'll give you a good example. We had a situation recently where we had 597 signatures. More than just a few people spoke, and the group we appointed went against that will, and I could do nothing about it because it was final. So, floor is open, gentlemen. In your packet then is the existing ULDC laws in Ascension Parish that would require minor modification. The green text shows you where it would have to change. Basically, it'd be, changing it to say council, 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 instead of saying Planning Commission, Planning Commission, Planning Commission, Planning Commission. Last time we started to my left, and we'll start to my right this time. Mr. Johnson. Mr. What's your name, Joseph? Come on, OJ. Wake up.
No comment on it, Doc. We have a system in place, and I feel that system right now is working for right now.
All right. Mr. Cagnolati?
No comment.
Okay, do I have a motion on this, or? If not, the chair will make a motion that we.
Well, hold on, Doc, hold on. You asking for a motion to move forward with it?
Well, or against it, or whatever,
Yeah,
whatever your motion is.
I make a motion that we, I'm not in favor of it. My motion is not in favor of it.
Okay, I have a motion not to change the system we have.
Not to change the system.
Do I have a second? Moved and seconded moved by Councilman Joseph, seconded by Councilman Johnson, that we continue to allow the Planning Commission to make, to be final in their say and not make recommendations to the council for final resolution. Any discussion? Any objection? I'm going to object and actually offer a substitute motion, which I'm reasonably certain will die for lack of a second, but here we go. My substitute motion, actually, point of order, I can't do that. I would be out of order, and I need to recognize that, because the only substitute I'd have is that we go forward with this. I don't know why we're not, but so we need a vote. Mr. Johnson.
No. Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
This is yes to Mr. To be clear, Mr. Joseph's motion that you seconded.
Right.
OJ.
Yes.
Mr. Cagnolati.
Yes.
And the chair votes no, 3-1. We will remain the way we are. Item number 8, I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
Moved by Mr. Joseph, second by Mr. Cagnolati to adjourn. This committee is adjourned.